Let's get the latest now on the threat from Islamic State militants who are locked in heavy street battles with Kurdish fighters for the Syrian town of Kobane. That's very near the Turkish border. Well, the National Security Analyst Arash Aramesh joins me now live from San Francisco. Arash, great to speak to you as ever on World News. We heard from the Pentagon just a couple of hours ago that the US is carrying out the bulk of these raids, and there have been some 2,000 raids since early August. But can the US speak of any success at all when we see towns like Kobane looking poised to fall?
You're right. Of about 2,000 airstrikes that have been carried out against ISIS positions in Iraq and Syria, only about 195, maybe 200 strikes were carried out by so-called allied forces from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. That's under 10%. So the U.S. is definitely carrying out the bulk of these strikes. I don't see there's a problem with that. It's good to have Arab allies, but I'll tell you why I don't see a problem with that necessarily. First and foremost, to get an implicit permission from the Assad regime and from the regime in Tehran to be able to carry out some of these strikes in Iraq and Syria, they probably wanted guarantees that the Arab neighbors, their own Arab neighbors, will not be heavily involved. They don't want to see their Arab neighbors, people they see as rivals, dropping bombs on their cities. That's one thing. Second, again, America has to lead. The problem is not necessarily America doing too much, is not doing enough. The fact that the city of Kobane, it's about population 45,000, sits right on the border of Syria and Turkey, it's about to fall any minute. Some of its defenses have been breached already. That says that we haven't done enough. The fact that ISIS forces can actually plant their black flag on a couple of buildings in the eastern and southern parts of town without any trouble whatsoever, without any fear of American or allied airstrikes, tells us that this campaign is just a nuisance. I was actually talking to an Air Force colonel a couple of hours ago, and that's exactly what he said. He said, let's get real or get out. This is just a nuisance, and it's not causing the real damage it needs to cause to ISIS for it to degrade and finally dismantle.
OK, well, Arash, just while we're talking to you, we're actually showing some pictures of Turkish troops massing on the border there. How long do you think it is before Turkey will be forced to join this coalition against ISIS?
On the one hand, the Kurds really, the Turks, the Turkish government doesn't really want to do anything to help the Kurds. They have a massive so-called Kurdish population problem in Turkey. So they don't want to come in and hand over victory to the Kurds who are fighting in Kobane. On the other hand, the very ISIS that Turkey to some extent helped create is not causing a lot of problems for them as well. Turkey is a NATO country. If Turkey comes under attack, all NATO countries, they have to go in. It's called Article 5. They have to intervene and protect another NATO member. The question here is, at what point Turkey is going to realize that going into Syria to help a Kurdish town or a Kurdish-held town is actually in their interest? That's one thing. Second thing is that the Syrians and the Iranians are not really happy to see the Turks come in. So you see regional rivalries where sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your enemy, but sometimes the enemy of your enemy is not necessarily your enemy. The Kurds want some help, yet the Turks are deterred because the Iranians and the Iraqi and the Syrians do not want to see Turkish tanks on Syrian streets. So that's a problem right there.